Marking of production. For optimization of the movement of goods and the container, an important role is played by marking. Marking is colored drawing things, inscriptions, and drawings on goods or container for the identification and the indication of ways of transportation, working of, and storage. It includes a complex of operations providing increase in efficiency of merchandising of production, its safety, quality, compliance to standards and the international standards, and also more effective control of drawing up at all stages of logistic management. Marking is subdivided on commodity, consignment, transport, and spatial. Commodity marking specifies or description of goods, his producer, the address, factory brand, a grade, goes by which the goods are made is used by color designation, number of the order, the made goods, serial number of the place in party. The commodity brand as Apple on production with the produced for goods. Consignor marking is reproduced on container in the form of fraction and the containers of floating date. Its numeration number of the place and the sender's sign. And in a denominator, number of places in party. Barcoding. For the purpose of marking and the automated identification of production, shaped coding widely is used. Drawing of barcode or use of system of automatic identification replace processing of data manually and the facilities input of data in the computer. At the same time, information comes to computer system in that place, and while she has a reason that provides a possibility of management of stream in real time. Input of information becomes absolutely reliable, and the participation of the person comes down in minimum. Shaping coding allows to come to new technological level in two aspects. 1. Information of the according of physical commodity terms, and 2. Management of information terms. The scope of shaped code is very various. In the sphere of commodity flows, it is monitoring of arrival and output of production inventory and the current account in the sphere of information management. Distribution planning, completion of invoices, control of warehouse economy, operational explaining of an entity or orders, its use of technology of coding positively affect warehouse inventories, cost of office work staff. Lection 14. Logistic expenses, organization and the management of transportation by various transports. Logistic expenses. Logistic expenses are a set of costs of traffic control, material streams on a logistic system, from suppliers of raw materials through manufacturing enterprise or to the end user. Logistic expenses represent the expenses of labor material, financial, and informational resources caused by performance of the functions by the enterprises for implementation of orders consumers. Cost of logistics is a raw make on of the most significant articles of expense completed with business concerning only to cost of raw materials and materials in production or prime cost of finished goods sale and the retail network. Expenses to order a cost of purchase of lot of products include costs of control expense of production, preparation and the transfer of the order, receiving production, check of quantity and the quality, and apportion in places of storage, verification of documents, preparation of the claim, registration, compensation of personnel. Cost of execution of the order include the administrative and administrative expenses connected with a preparation of the purchase order or production order. Storage expenses, the expenses connected with ensuring safety of production. Enter expenses of storage, cost of the maintenance of warehouses, salary of warehouse personnel, shortage of production within norms of natural resources, administrative and managerial and other expenses. Warehouse expenses determined by the sum of costs of organization of production and the sum of overhead costs. Transport expenses, costs of transportation production from the place of sale or purchase to the location of buyers. Transport expenses include payment of transport tariffs and various collection, transport enterprise, charges of own transport, the cost of loading and unloading work, forwarding as freights. Replacement expenses, the size of economically justified compensation of some reduction of a stock or use of the estimated resource of the resource without reduction of volume of production. For example, was of ton of oil will demand from the enterprise of the quantity of an additional resource corresponding on caloric content. Its cost and will make expenses of replacement of this ton of oil. Costs of adjustment connected with readjustment of processing equipment upon transition from production on type of production to another, with receiving from a raw materials warehouse. A conclusion from jobs of early made production. Charges of stocks of production consist of the cost implementation of the order and the cost storage of stocks. Cost of storage of stocks of production. 1. The imputed costs of investment into production stocks. Additional costs of insurance. Additional cost of warehousing. Additional cost of processing and of production. And expenses owing to obsolescence and deterioration in characteristics of stocks. Organization and management of transport by various transport. In modern conditions of concept of logistics includes a big complex of the operation connected with stockpile management, warehousing of goods, and the process of delivery. The mission of logistics is a satisfaction of demand of clients for goods at the smallest expenses connected with function of system, transport, warehouse economy stocks. Public transport, branch of the national economy which satisfies requirements of branches of the national economy for transportation of goods and the passengers. Transport of uncommon use includes intra-production transport, and also the vehicles of all types belong to not transport enterprises. Technological compliance means use of informed technology of transportation direct overloads. 1. Coordination of economic interests of participants of transport process. 2. Use of informed system of planning. Also carry to problems of transport logistics, creation of transport corridors, the choice of type of transport, the choice of route of transportation of freight, the choice like the vehicle. Transportations in the course of the address in modern conditions carried out generally by public transport, railway, automobile, water, air, and also spatial transport. Lection 15. Incoterms. Logistic of the user of transport services. Incoterms. Drawing up under the conclusion of contracts of delivery goods between the states demands from the purchase of knowledge of spatial terminology. In order to avoid cases of incorrect interpretation of the concept used in the sphere of foreign trade activities and as a result emergence of disputes, it is necessary to be guided by the rules mixed in the Incoterms. The Incoterms. The document having the status of the International Statutory Act published in the form of the dictionary containing a list of the terms which are most widely used the conclusion of contracts of external deliveries and the exhaustive definition of them. His main objective, standardization and optimization of conditions of international trades of delivery for the reduction to complaints to law of all participating countries of the contract. Scope Incoterms. The international trade terms of descent to regulate the following spheres of trade relationship. 2. Definition of the delivery date of goods. 3. Distribution between the parties of the contract of the transport expenses and the other expenses connected with transportation of freight. 4. Settlement of conditions of transportation, transition of responsibility from for the risks connected with death, loss or damage of goods in the course of transportation. All terms which part the Incoterms designate in the former trigram abbreviation, in which first letter indicates the moment and the place of transition of obligations from the supplier to the recipient. E. English departure shipment. Obligations passed to the buyer directly at the time of sending and respectively in the place of sending goods. F. English main carriage and point. The main transportation isn't pied. A point of transition of obligations is the transportation departure terminal, provided that the main part of transportation remains unpaid. C. Payment of the main transportation is made in full. Obligations passed into the moment of receipt of freight to the arrival terminal. D. Full delivery. When transition of obligations is carried out of the time of expense of goods by the buyer. The universal terms. EXW. Shipment at an expense of or category of transportations where a point free, that is the place of transition of responsibility from the supplier to the receiver, is directly the warehouse of the seller. In more detail. FCA. The mode obligation of the seller to deliver goods to the place of reception by its carrier according to the terms of the contract. In more detail. CPT. Payment of the main part and transportation that is to an arrival point lease on the seller who, according to the contract, releases delivery of goods to carrier. CIP. The delivery mode almost similar categories. CPT difference consists in assignment of an obligation for payment of an insurance on the seller. DAT. Distribution of expenditures between the seller and the buyer. The first pays delivery to the terminal of arrival and the export payments and the insurance collections. The second, customs cleaning and the rest of transportation to the destination. DAP. Delivery of goods to the destination with assignment of obligations for payment of the import duties and the taxes to the state receiver on the buyer. DDP. Delivery of goods to the destination with assignment of expenditures on the seller in full. The terms apply to the cargo and transportation which is released by marine and other naval transports. FOB. Shipment of goods on the vessel belonging to the buyer or paid with it at the same time. Payment of a part of delivery to the terminal is included into a duty of the seller. FAS. Delivery of goods to the vessel of the buyer without shipment. The burden of payment of shipment and the delivery lies on the receiver. CFR, transportation of a load to the port specified in the contract. At the same time, the buyer pays expensive duties on delivery, payment of an insurance, and loading and the transshipment operation independently. CIF, the delivery mode similar to category CFR, however, payment of insurance premiums is lied to the seller. Logistics of the user of transport services. The transport logistic includes a number of elements, or in other words, essential components. The most important of them following: 1. The freight forming the corresponding streams. 2. Ways. 3. Terminal. 4. Rolling stock. 5. Traction mains. 6. Sites of logical processes. 7. Container and packing. Freight is seriation production and also various property of nature and the legal intents, which is acceptance of for shipment by public transport or other to transportations. Dangerous phrase subdivided into the following cases: 1. Explosives. 2. Gases, liquefied and soluble under pressure. 3. Liquids. 4. Easily flammable solid substance. Self burning down the substance and the substance emitting easily flammable gases at interaction with water. 5. The oxidizing substance and the organic peroxides. 6. Toxic substance poisonous. 7. Radioactive and infectious substances. 8. Caustic and corrosion substance. 9. Other dangerous substances. They have to perform the 3 main functions. 1. To provide access to the rolling stock, addressing undefined means of communication. 2. To provide to easy change of the rolling stock, working at this way or with other means of transport. 3. To facilitate process of transformation materials, passenger streams. The main characteristics of terminals: participant of processes of physical advance of material streams on transport share on 3 the integrated types: consignor, 1, 2 consignor, and 3 carrier. The consignor is the nature or legal entity which is acting on its own behalf and carrying out certain duties which cause finished speaking transportations, including presentation of properly packed freight to carrier or its agent for delivery to the destination and the deliveries of consignor. The consignor is a nature or legal entity competent of accept the freight delivered by carrier in the destination. Redressing and or change of the consignor is made in the order provided by the charters. Rules of transportations and other regulations existing on the corresponding public means of transport.